To the April 15th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. I will now call this meeting to order and lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Zoom webinar participation is available for members of the public. The Zoom webinar ID and link are available on the posted agenda on the city website. Will we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Rocamora.
Present.
Commissioner Ruck.
Here.
Commissioner Mora.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Here.
Commissioner Meeks. Commissioner Perno. Chairperson McKelvey-Day.
Present. And now may we have staff introductions?
Brisa Salcedo, Administrative Aid.
Lisa Brenton, Community Development Director.
Courtney Grossman, Planning Manager.
Susan Matthew, Management Analyst.
Son Gallardo, Senior Planner.
All right, welcome everyone. Oh, two more.
Chris Callahan, City Attorney.
Adam Garrett, Associate Planner.
All right, welcome. And public comments. Public comments are generally limited to 2 minutes per speaker. The chair may further limit the time for public comments depending on the agenda schedule. Are there any comments from the public regarding items not on today's agenda? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay, and so we will close public comment. Moving on to consent ID number 25-530, approval of minutes from April 1st, 2026 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Rocamora?
No questions or comments?
Commissioner Ruck?
No questions, comments.
Commissioner Mora?
Questions or comments?
Commissioner Gutierrez?
No questions or comments.
Commissioner Purnell?
Questions or comments?
And I have no questions or comments. Is there a motion and a second?
I move to approve the meeting minutes of April 1st, 2026.
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion from Commissioner Purnell and a second from Commissioner Mora, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Rocamora.
Yes.
Commissioner Ruck.
Abstain.
Commissioner Mora.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Perno.
Yes.
Chairperson McKelvey-Day.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So moving on to public hearings, ID number 26-156, conditional use permit 2024-067, request for residential design review to construct a 1,614 detached single-family dwelling unit with a 748 square foot attached three-car garage, an 818 square foot accessory dwelling unit, ADU, and an attached 470 square foot junior accessory dwelling unit, JADU, located at 110 Chestnut Street in the residential low-density airport overlay R-L-5.5-AR zoning district. Commissioner Ruck, you have something to announce?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I am recusing myself from this. It is from this item. It is within 500 feet of my house, and the regulations are very clear that I need to recuse myself. So thank you very much. I'll leave the chambers, the facility.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Gutierrez, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so I as well need to recuse myself from this this hearing. I have previously worked with the applicant, and so therefore it's in the best interest that I just recuse myself from this, and I'll be leaving the chambers.
Okay, thank you. And we've confirmed with legal that we are okay with the remaining on the dais? Yes. Yes, okay.
The clarifications from the legal team about the distance we have to be from this, now that I hear Commissioner Ruck's comment.
So the standard is 500 feet from your primary residence to the subject property. So if you're within that, I would recommend that you recuse yourself. If you're within 1,000 feet, there's also a rebuttable presumption that you have a conflict, but we would need to have a conversation about whether or not there are facts sufficient to rebut that, that conflict. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, so Let's see, public assignment is scheduled as follows. The protest group, including all designated speakers, will provide their comments first and will be limited to 15 minutes total. I guess I'll read this so everybody's clear on what we're going to be doing. So the segment will be scheduled as follows. Protest group, including all designated speakers, will provide their comments first and be limited to 15 minutes total. The project applicant or their representatives will provide their comments second and will be limited to 15 minutes total. The protest group will have an opportunity for rebuttal comments and will be limited to 5 minutes total. The project applicant or the representatives will have an opportunity for rebuttal comments and will be limited to 5 minutes total. The public comment period will then be open to all other members of the public, with each speaker limited to 2 minutes. Participants attending via Zoom will be asked to use the raise hand feature to indicate their desire to speak and will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. All right, so that just kind of lays it out so everybody knows what to expect. And then now Sunfam Gallardo, Senior Planner, will present this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. My name is Sanfam Gallardo, Project Planner for Conditional Use Permit 2024-067. So I have a PowerPoint presentation here that I'm going to go through. Okay, so the property is located at 110 Chestnut Street with a zoning designation of residential low density with an airport overlay. The project consists of a conditional use permit with the construction of a single-family dwelling and a 3-car attached garage on a 6,500 square foot vacant lot. Although not subject to a conditional use permit to construct a single family, in addition to that, there's a construction of a junior ADU, which is a junior accessory dwelling unit, and also a detached accessory dwelling unit. Please note the junior ADU is indicated in the blue rectangle, which is part of the single-family dwelling attachment. Here, I'd like to walk you through the history of the project. So on March 16, 2026, a notice of approval for the CUP was mailed out to all property owners located in 300 feet of the adjacent property. On March 26, which would have been the approval date, staff received protest correspondences from property owners and interest parties. And on April 3rd, a public hearing notice was mailed out to the same property owners, and also the notice for a public hearing was also published in the Monterey Herald. So between March 19th and March 25th of 2026, before the first approval date has an administrative prior to the protest letters, there were concerns that were brought up based on neighborhood compatibility and design, privacy and fire ingress, parking and traffic, accessory dwelling units, landscaping plans, and drainage. The original application showed a boxy two-story design that was not consistent with the neighborhood. The original design did not illustrate a stepped-back approach from the front of the street to adjacent smaller residential dwellings. The structure was not broken up into smaller architectural components, and it did not include substantial single-story elements. So staff worked with the designer, and the current proposed design have been submitted. Staff found that the current design is consistent with the general plan, goals, and policies. In addition to it conforms with development standards and designs, has demonstrated the infill residential development. And the project will not adversely impact the character of the existing neighborhood because it would be in compliance in terms of the height and scale design requirements contained in zoning code section 3750.110 G1A through F. That's also part of the infill development regulations. And the project, as staff sees it, based on the analysis, will be compatible with the scalable height and location of the existing dwellings on the neighborhood block face. As shown here, it demonstrates the 150-foot neighboring block face, and based on the block face exhibit, Staff finds it to be in conformance with the development's regulations pursuant to Section 3750-110. The architectural style is a modern farmhouse, French Revival style with traditional components, including materials such as wood, stucco, board and batten, siding, and stone facade finished, which is compatible with the neighboring properties. The asymmetrical front elevation shows classic historical features similar to those structures across the street. Pursuant to Assembly Bill AB 2097, shown on the slide here indicates the buffer of bus stops. And pursuant to the AB 2097, public agencies or cities are prohibited from imposing minimum automobile parking requirements on most development projects located within half a mile radius of a major transit stop. And the closest bus stop to this property are along West Alisal, Soledad, Monterey Streets. Therefore, the city is prohibited from imposing parking requirements on this development. And as you can see here to your right is where the buffer crosses in terms of the half a mile radius. Pursuant to, the environment impacts of the project have been analyzed. I'll grab a water here. Excuse me, have been analyzed in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and staff finds it to be exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15303 and 15332. And staff concludes the presentation and is available for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Rocamora?
No questions right now.
Commissioner Mora?
Yeah, no questions on my end. Thank you so much. The report was very comprehensive and clear.
Thank you.
Commissioner Purnell?
I just had a quick question. In our packet, did we receive the original protest letters?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They're part of the exhibits.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to, are you done, Commissioner? Yeah, I was going to ask, because today we did only receive the agenda, so we're not able to reference the rest of what was included, except for the one that was just received this afternoon, which is very short notice for us to review. So if we could, in the future, have that, because right now, like, for us to reference, I think what's missing for me right now is you had shown the CUP, like all the addendums and attachments, showing that what was cleared and reviewed. And I put it on my desk, but I didn't bring it because I thought it would be here. So anyway, I had some questions regarding that, or at least clarifications. But I did want to ask, we received this protest letter, or at least a submission, this afternoon. We just received it at 3 o'clock, and it's here up on the dais. Did staff have time to review
I did.
it? Okay.
Yes.
Was there anything that stood out to you as far as, is there anything that wasn't addressed on the original CUP that you already outlined? Or
Majority
maybe
of the
could you review that? Like, just review what you had put together for the CUP,
Yes.
why you felt that staff had addressed all the issues, and what things might be addressed further in the process, which I know a lot of us as commissioners have asked that several times, like, why are we approving something before we even have results from certain aspects? And because it's become administrative,
Yes.
commission doesn't really have control over that. We only have to, like, look at this one little box and then make a
Correct.
decision on the box. So if you could explain that further.
Yes, staff received this about 1:50 or so and had a chance to review it prior to the public hearing. A majority of the concerns are similar to protest letter 3 that we received as part of the package. I didn't see any new concerns. They reference back to the state ADU laws, in terms of traffic impacts. It's basically the issues that were addressed in the staff report.
Okay, so just looking back on that then, when, like, one of the questions that's on the or objections, I should say, is how it's worded, is where is it determined that this is, okay, how do I want to ask this? If the application is turned in, single-family residence, we have an ADU, let's just say it was an existing single-family residence, you want to put in an ADU. When they apply for an ADU, do they typically have to live in the property to apply for an ADU?
No, staff went through the handbook, the new March 2026 ADU handbook. There's no stipulation where it states an owner needs to be occupied on site when there's an ADU that's being developed. In addition, based on this project, part of the exhibit was from a representative from state HCD who's in charge of the ADU division, and she was able to review the project and all the components that comes along with it, and there's a letter stating that it is in conformance and it is approvable. It's
Okay,
not.
it's reviewed by the state.
It is,
Okay.
and that was the last exhibit on the, that was part of the attachment on the
Of the
staff
agenda.
report.
Okay, so that
Could
was
I-
kind of, oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's kind of two parts to the ADU question about owner occupancy. And I just want to hit that nail on the head right here. The ADU does not require owner occupancy on the property.
Okay,
The JADU does.
okay.
They're different. And there's one of the notes here, number 5, or, number, one of them, I can't remember which one it was, indicates about the owner occupancy requirement. What we do as a city, when we get to the building permit process, there is a deed restriction requirement. So there'll be a pair of deed restrictions. One of them will be for the ADU, one will be for the JADU. Short-term stays are prohibited, and the owner occupancy requirement for the JADU will be pushed into the JADU deed restriction. Just want to make that clear. The JADU does require owner occupancy on the property.
Yeah, that does help, because then I had other questions that came up in my mind after reading that. And so I just recall, like, when I was doing mortgage loans, people would say, oh, it's owner occupied to get a better rate. And what was behind that is whether they were or not, how many times does the lender really check? So for us, for example, is there even a period of time or any kind of enforcement behind, whether they stay there or if they live there and then they need to move and then now it's not owner occupied? Like, what, the new resident that comes in, does that follow them on the deed restriction, or how does that work then?
It's locked into the property.
Okay,
So if the
so it goes
property-
with the property.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so someone purchasing that should be advised this has to be owner, meaning the upstairs needs to be owner occupied, but the back unit doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it has to be part of the junior ADU, and there's a definition for a junior ADU versus an ADU, and that's under Government Code 66314, and that explains it all in the state's ADU handbook. And if you pull up that government code, it specifically states it can't be more than 500 square feet. So there's requirements of how it falls within the junior ADU versus an ADU. But it also has to be an attached to the single-family dwelling, not
Okay, so
detached.
thinking of the opposite route, so then let's say I own this property, it's rebuilt, and then I want to sell it. Somebody else purchases it. They cannot purchase it as a rental property for the single-family residence.
Are you stating that there's a current junior ADU or just a
Well,
single-family
this
dwelling?
property here. So even
Yeah,
if the
so-
current owners own it and then they sell it and I purchase it, I can't purchase that as a rental.
That's correct.
Meaning I have to occupy the house part.
Yes, so based on the deed,
Because of once I have that junior ADU, it's limited.
yeah, based on the deed restrictions that comes along with your title, so when they pull it up, when you, go through escrow, it's going to show up on there.
Okay. My other question, actually, I think you answered my other question I had, which was, regarding the city versus the state. I know there's been expression that, yes, the state's coming out so quickly with their
Yes.
changes that we're trying to keep up. But everything you're doing as you go through it, staff is reviewing the state in case it supersedes something we have in writing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question was ADU versus junior ADU, already answered. Occupied zoning, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm asking all I had questions about. I think that was all I have here. Oh, the part about usable open space, I was kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I had a chance to look that up right before this hearing. I could share. So on slide number 3, let's see if this pointer works. If you could, Brisa, can you help me with this pointer? Is there a feature for a pointer? No. So I'm just going to try to explain it. Okay, here we go. Okay. So in terms of the open space, and that was referenced in the recent letter that we received today. Let me go ahead and pull that section out. So section 3730.070 of the zoning ordinance requires 1,000 square feet of usable open space. And if you see here, it referenced the open space, but the opposition letter states that this particular area is about 1,000 square feet. He is correct that it is not 1,000 square feet. It is about 350 square feet or so. However, under the definition of the open space, we could actually add this particular section here. And based on the dimension, the staff calculated it to be approximately 680 square feet. So we have a total open space of 1,038 square feet.
Okay, I can't see, it's so small. What is that brick-looking thing?
Let me see if we could, are you able to
Oh, it's a
zoom that?
patio? I can't see.
It's actually the driveway, the definition
You're thinking
of
it's
open
touch
space. The definition of open space in the zoning code allows portions of driveways to be counted as open space if set back a certain distance from the front property line. And I believe that's what Sona's looking at here in terms of how
Yes,
the
so
driveway.
I'm sorry, I brought the definition, and it says for lots with single-family detached dwellings, the portion of the driveway that serves a required detached garage and which are located in a minimum of 40 feet from the front property line of the lot, which meets the minimum size dimensions above, may be counted as usable open space. So therefore, staff added that particular portion with the open space that's identified on the plans to exceed the 1,000 square feet.
Okay. That does answer my question. The other things that were in this letter were actually, they're good points because as we are being kind of pressured by the state to encourage ADUs and things, are these part of what will happen in the process as far as specifically, water and resources, sewer, all these things that get added when we're adding to a property that wasn't there prior? What are there reports that are done at some point?
Yeah, a lot of these, so part of the ADU, as we discussed, it's changing with the state. So it is not subject to a discretionary permit. So at the building stage, that would be captured in terms of the utilities.
Okay, those were all of my questions for now. Let's see, we are going to open for public comment, but first we're going to start with the protest group. Are there anybody in the public here who are protesting this item? Should they be official protesters or?
We just classified the opposition group as the protest group. What happens in our view, there were 3 protest letters. So if all 3 are here, great. If the protest group, sorry, let me put it this way. if someone is not part of the 3 protest letters, their opportunity to speak would happen later during the 2-minute part as public comments.
Public comment, okay. Yeah, any protesters in the audience that would like to speak?
Hi, my
Welcome.
name's Gail Elkins, and I live at 106 Chestnut Street. This house that they're wanting to build is just 2 doors down from me. And the lot is long. It's not that wide. And the way they have the garages set up, I don't know how they're going to drive in there and then turn into the garage. It's not that wide of a lot, and I was concerned about that. They're putting 3 garages in for 3 units. It really looks out of place for that neighborhood. My number 1 reason I bought that home was because it was a cozy, charming neighborhood. To me, this place looks really out of place. You know, it just, it's a 2-story building. I think it would look better if it was a 1-story building with an AUD, with a little charm. And that, I think that would, they would get enough of rent for that place, for a home and an AUD, for whatever financial reasons they want to, because they're not building it for themselves to live in, you know. It's an investor, and it's not a personal home, so. And I've been there 32 years, and I'd like to see the neighborhood stay cozy and charming that it was when I moved in. And with this building, it's not going to be like that. And I'm concerned about the parking. We live, Salinas High School's that way, and Lincoln Elementary's the other way. And during school hours, everybody parks on the street. And most people have 2 cars, so I'm worried about where are they going to park in that skinny driveway into the garage, you know, and then their cars will be on the street. So parking is an issue, and I really don't like the looks of that building. It looks too modern for such an old neighborhood. It was all built in the 30s, so. And I am concerned about the sewer line. You know, it's an old sewer line on Chestnut Street. I had to replace my sewer line at one point, and I think that's all clay, and I don't know how they're all going to do that, but anyway, I just, that's my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela McNulty. I'm a resident at 134 Chestnut, which is about 4 houses down toward Lincoln School. And as my neighbor says, parking is an incredible problem, especially because of primarily because of Lincoln School, to the point that I have to park. I happen to have 2 cars, and I park one strategically because people would block my driveway routinely, parking for Lincoln School. And being, you know, I have to get to work at a certain time, that was a real problem. And, you know, the City of Salinas Police Department has a lot of things to do. They can't respond in time to move someone who's going to stay, you know, 15 minutes, a half hour or more. Sometimes teachers do it as well, actually. And so there is a lot of pressure. A lot of the homes there, as my neighbor says, are older. I replaced my sewer line. It was made of clay. And so that's an issue. I did that about 3 or 4 years ago. And each household, even though they're all single-family dwellings, they're not multiple-unit dwellings. And so even single-family dwellings, families now, everyone needs a car to drive. If you have a husband, a wife, 2 kids, everybody's got a car. The families on either side of me have 5 cars each. And it's kind of a nightmare. And so I wish that the proposed building was a single-family home. I wouldn't have any problem with that. But with multiple units, multiple people inhabiting those units, and multiple vehicles, it's just going to change the character of the neighborhood, and that is a real concern. I also bought there because there were older homes. I tend to like older homes. There were single-family units, and it was a peaceful, gentle atmosphere, which multiple daily parking by Lincoln parents challenge that for periods of time during the day. But overall, it's getting worse because so many families that are there have so many multiple cars that this particular unit poses a significant problem. Thank you.
Chair McKelvey, members of the Planning Commission, Joel Panzer. I live at 701 Pajaro Street, and I had our primary entrance is through the Chestnut Street side. I submitted the letter at 1:30 or 1:50 or whenever it came in. I just got the information to be able to review it at like 6 o'clock on a Friday night, and I was busy all weekend, so I don't mean to bombard you with a 5-page letter and 18 exhibits. I object to the CEQA categorical exemption. I've got about 18 exhibits that provides information, and I believe that the Planning Commission should refer this matter back to staff for CEQA infill initial study, which is in the CEQA Guidelines Appendix X. Like other speakers, I believe that this is really going to be a commercial rental triplex that's going to be proposed in the neighborhood. The ADU handbook makes it clear that if you have a junior ADU that does not share common sanitary facilities, each of these units can be rented. And I think that that's the direction that this project application is headed, unless the applicant states otherwise. I believe the upstairs unit's got a kitchen or a small little cooking area. It's got a toilet, shower. So that means the house can be rented, the JADU could be rented, and the primary ADU could be rented. So if you look at, and what staff didn't mention in their presentation, this is an RL-5.5 neighborhood, which sets forth the density. With these units on a 6,000 square foot lot, if you just run the math, and I know ADUs don't, aren't calculated for density purposes, but it's like 21 units an acre, which changes the character of the neighborhood. You've heard other speakers discuss. And the majority of the homes here are owner occupied. It's a really nice, quiet neighborhood. Now, fast forward, the current owners moved in, and the staff report incorrectly notes that it's a husband and wife. It's actually owned by a partnership. I think it's ACJN. They own 8 other rental properties in Salinas. There's an exhibit in my letter that indicates that in 2024, the Castillos are on record that they declined to move into the property. And it's been a nightmare ever since they bought the property. In one of my other exhibits, I provided information from County Dispatch, 39 911 calls for fire, medical, trespass. We had several arson-related calls with active fires going on there. They did really nothing meaningful to secure the property. Last week, I took a picture of the arsonist going back in to sleep. He's been sleeping there at night. There's a pile of dirt behind the house, which now last week miraculously disappeared. The property's been regraded again. So if really that's what we're talking about and it's not owner-occupied, there's really no way to manage that. In my exhibit, you'll see there's property they have on Kern Street and over on Catherine Street, multiple calls. It doesn't create a real quiet neighborhood. So I would ask you to consider that. There was reference earlier to the ADU handbook, where really one aspect of that is allows owners to have additional rental income to support themselves, or if they want to downsize, they can move to an ADU, or if they need nursing care, those sorts of things. The city currently has a 24-year-old general plan. According to the staff report, the ADU ordinance has been rescinded. In my packet, there's a letter from Housing and Community Development that's February 2024 that told the city, hey, you must do an ADU ordinance. Here we are over 2 years later, that still hasn't occurred. And I think that we're sort of, as residents here, paying the penalty because the city has not kept up with developments at the state level relative to ordinances. Or to developing an ordinance which would designate where it's appropriate for ADUs to go. I've also sent photos in, and it wasn't really properly acknowledged in the staff report. There's been at least 4 loads of soil placed on the property. Who knows where it came from? The first couple loads had stuff in it, glass, rubber, God knows what was in there. In my letter, you'll see on another project, I have a letter from the Department of Toxic Substances that suggests that you got to test fill material. You want to make sure it's clean fill. I would also say that in my letter, there's another comment about with the arson fire, I think there were 2 or 3 different fires. That was an older house, lead-based paint, asbestos, the types of building materials you'd find for that period. I'm sure some of that residual material, you know, if you're putting it out with hoses, remains in the soil. So is there any plans to test soil? Is soil going to be removed before you put residential construction and make sure there's no harmful contamination on that site? So that's that, those 2 comments. And then just CEQA related, again, I just sort of think that this is almost like a piecemealing. We're going to use a categorical, exemption where we don't know what the growth is going to be in South Salinas. I've provided information in my report, December 2024, information from the Monterey County Water Resources Agency that shows how the saltwater intrusion is continuing to grow from like 2012-ish to 2025, 2024 to South Salinas. That's a serious concern if you're increasing population densities with a categorical exemption. There's no big picture planning. You know, if you just do it on a lot by lot basis, that's not comprehensive planning, and I have some real concerns about that. There's another comment I put in there about drainage. The Salinas General Plan standard is that there should be no net increase in runoff. And if you look at, I think it's sheet U in the plans, their proposal is just to run water out onto Chestnut Street. I've already got water that pools up in front of my house during peak rainfall events, and I've got water intrusion into the basement. This will make it worse. The engineering division in the staff report said, hey, look, for the building permit, we'll just do a drainage study there. Well, once you give somebody a CUP, you're going to have to deal with it. Why can't we look at that drainage now? It's just that there was a tree that lifted up part of that roadway so it pools in front of my house, and I believe it's causing problems. Can I demonstrate that or prove it? No, but I've got 2 pictures of puddling to show you that it's not making it to the storm drain. And I think the mitigation measure in the general plan is that there should be an analysis of that, and if so, that should be done before the CUP or as part of the CUP approval process. Public services is I guess my last comment. Since the neighbors moved in, I think I've mentioned 39 calls for service at this address, 9 calls for service at the 231 Kern Street. This is within the last year and a half. 5 calls at 227 Catherine Street for the same ownership group. So clearly they don't have the ability to effectively manage property. And if in fact we're talking about a commercial triplex, that's a huge concern. One other thing I think I'd like to mention, Ms. Pham Gallardo had indicated that most of what's in this letter that you just received was covered in the staff report. 60% of it is new information that I just discovered after receiving the information from staff on Friday night to prepare this letter. I would also take issue with the characterization that driveway is considered open space. If you look at the staff report, and I think it's in the general plan or maybe the zoning ordinance, it talks about usable open space, not just because you've got an open driveway that counts towards 1,000 square feet. So their open space, I think of it as, well, maybe there's a backyard or a front yard to, you know, sit or enjoy or have an outdoor meal, not you've got your 4-foot setbacks or you've got a driveway. And if you have cars parked in that driveway and not in the garage, many people use their garages for storage, that's not usable open space. So I would question that. So I think I would conclude by saying Assembly Bill number 130 allows up to 5 public hearings on a project associated with an ADU application. The focus of my letter is primarily on the single-family residence. There's a little bit of a spillover effect in terms of other impacts, I believe, that are associated with the ADUs. So there's no rush to take action today. I think by law, you've got the ability to refer this matter, back to staff. And again, there is a checklist, Appendix N and CEQA for infill development. I would ask that the, I almost need a glass of water. I would ask that the Planning Commission refer the matter back to staff, look at the items I provided, because I believe what I'm providing to you is substantial evidence for the record to demonstrate that CEQA needs to be done for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, are there any comments from the project applicant or their representatives?
Hello,
Welcome.
Planning Commission. How you guys doing? My wife Dolores is in the back and my kids, and just wanted to kind of let you know that we're not just investors. My family and I moved and bought that house so that we could remodel it at first, and then what all these protesters failed to tell you was that a lot of the calls that were made to 911 was a lot of them was because of them. A lot of them were calling me and texting me late at night in the evening complaining and about homeless or somebody walking in the street that might be my friend. And I'm like, right? All these complaints are all from them. And it's kind of funny that they didn't bring that up. They assumed that me, by buying the property, I brought all this violence and craziness to the neighborhood. They've been having these issues since the 70s. I know so because I spoke to the owners that live there. I have a long relationship with the Long family that lives all in that area. I know all the neighbors in that area that I speak to constantly, that they speak to, spreading rumors about me and about my family. You know, and us in the Hispanic family, I don't do that. So, but apparently they do. So the property, we purchased it to remodel and to live in it. Long story short, the same homeless people that were living there before I bought it kept on breaking into the property. Because of that, we couldn't move in. Secondly, the house needed just a ton of work, so we opted to get a remodel permit, but we then opted, after the fire, right, there was a big fire, the homeless set the house on fire, which was 95% destroyed. Something that the neighbors did not tell you either. So all those 911 calls weren't because I brought violence or craziness to the neighborhood. It was already there since the 70s. So my objective here is to build something clean and nice that fits for the neighborhood where my family and I could live. They're referring to as commercializing this property. I'm not commercializing it. If I'm gonna live in it with my family and my kids and my oldest son, why can't I do that? Why do I need to have neighbors complaining about what I'm gonna build for my family? You know, and here I am, talk for the very first time ever having to speak in a forum like this, having to, you know, it's just kind of mind-boggling, to be honest with you. But again, everything that the neighbors left out is kind of mind-boggling to me, especially doing it on the record. I didn't bring the violence. It's always been there since day one, because this house was rooted with homeless and drug dealers. All the 911 calls was because I had to make them. Some of them they had to make. My assistant, Brand, that lives across the street, had to make several of them. Brand speaks to them all the time. All the neighbors, Shazette is also she was complaining, but yet she decided not to complain anymore because she came and talked to me on what we were gonna do. We showed her the plans. We showed her everything we were doing. We did obscured windows in the second story for privacy for our neighbors. Who does obscured windows in the upstairs bedrooms? Do any of you have second story houses where you guys have obscured windows besides in a bathroom? If you guys do, I guarantee you, you don't have any obscured windows throughout the house upstairs, only in the bathrooms. And in my case, I'm trying to follow all the state guidelines, all the local building codes. I decided to do the obscured windows all upstairs to give neighbors privacy. and yet it's still not enough. You know, I don't know what they want from me besides just giving up. But yet they don't want nobody hanging around the property, an empty lot. I don't know what to do. I really do not know what to do. I don't know what they want from me, you know? And they referred to my trust as a investment firm or something like, it's like a trust, like anybody, if you guys have a trust, you guys know that you guys don't, you know, it's a name, whatever, pick any name. It's a trust. It's my family trust. And the properties that I purchase with my wife and my kids is for us. You know, I don't know what else to say. But, you know, I hope that you guys take all these things in consideration. I bought this property to make the neighborhood better. That's what I'm doing. I've already gone through 18 months of scrutiny with the city, and planning, design, my designer, my family, the whole back and forth, spending thousands of dollars on changing from the original design to what you guys already see, which I love. We like it. Stone, it has a lot of character, it's vintage. You know, it's a little bit more modern, but it still has all the old character of South Salinas. All my properties are mostly located in Old Town Salinas. So, and this is what I do. I'm not looking to bring a bunch of renters, or like one of the neighbors suggested, oh, there's gonna be people sitting on the stairs. Like, who does that? Like, what kind of comment is that? That's kind of a crazy comment to assume that I'm gonna have people sitting on the stairs or sitting outside hanging around. I don't know why they're making these kind of comments. And, but again, I hope you consider my project and allow me to build it, because, you know, my family and I are just excited about the project. We're excited about the whole neighborhood. We love South Salinas. We love Salinas overall. And we're just ready to build. I hope you allow me to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, are there any rebuttal comments from the protest group? Well, you're part of the protest group, aren't you?
Well, I wasn't part of the first group that wrote the letter. So. I've been at 134 Chestnut for 25 years. Actually, now it's 26. Before the proposed building, there was a home, or what you could possibly refer to as a home. It was used as a home, but it was essentially a wood shack. I can't imagine that any builder or contractor or property investor would remodel the very small wood shack that was there. There was a fire. I live a few doors down. I wasn't a witness to any of that. I did see the damage that significantly damaged it. And that did happen. But before that fire, I can't see any reasonable person investing in that property, remodeling or doing anything with that wood shack. It was a tear down. And as far as calling 911, I've never done that. I've never had cause to. Maybe I live far enough away that there's not a problem. But the only thing that really concerns me, and it's been bothering me ever since I saw the plans, was the density and the cars that people routinely have, and making our situation worse, and also taxing the infrastructure of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Joel Panzer, just to clarify, you know, about 911 calls. I was out there one night walking with the dog. There's smoke coming out of the building that had been burned before. Sure, I'm going to call 911 if the building's on fire. I think another 911 call was when we saw the same arsonist go back into the building at one point, called the police. That's the whole purpose of 911. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go harass my neighbor. So what's telling about the testimony from the owner is, oh, I'm not bringing in renters, but you got 2 junior ADUs. I don't know who's going to live there. You got 9 other rental properties. I mean, if you're an investor, that's what you're doing. You're renting it out, so yes, you're bringing in renters. And I've been on the property or in that neighborhood for 20 years, trying to say that there was violence all around the neighborhood or associated with that property It's not true. There was maybe drug activity, but Mark, aside from some of the people he associated with, we didn't have violent incidences in the 20 years I've been there. So I think that's just a mischaracterization. So in any event, again, I strongly believe that the project should not be approved tonight, and seek initial study on the very specific issues I've raised that are environmental in nature should be considered by the Planning Commission. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any others from the protest group? Okay, so are there any rebuttal comments from the project applicant?
All right. So this gentleman, Joel, and his wife, Maureen, that sits at that chair, not only do I have text messages from them late at night, phone calls in the evening, harassing me to get over there and call the police and do something about stopping the homeless from going into a burned house. To me, it's just really shocking that he's actually created that little letter, that little stunt at the end of the, 1:50 p.m. or whatever it was. He decides to send this big old email with these documents. You know, that to me, that's a little bit crazy. But, you know, Maureen, she recused herself because she's online stating, and we have text message or screenshots of her stating that she hates that project. She hates that everybody should go there and protest at today's meeting. She's saying that in public and on social media. So why did she recuse herself? Not only because maybe she lives 500 feet, but because she's doing all these things behind the scenes. That's why. That's why I confronted her when she first walked in, and she got really nervous because she knew exactly what I was talking about, because I have the screenshots. And guess who shared them? The same people that they're dealing with, that their same neighbors are giving them to me. So to me, these people either don't have nothing to do or they have a vendetta against me for some reason. I don't even know them. I'm not trying to make anything commercialized. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm trying to build a home for my wife and kids, okay? What tenants are you guys referring to? What cars? I don't park my cars in the street. I park my car in the driveway or in the garage, like normal people, normal folks do. And these guys are calling my kids tenants, renters? What is that? That's ridiculous. That really is ridiculous. You know, it's really upsetting that all of a sudden my kids are just tenants, renters. I don't expect my kids to pay rent. My kids are my kids. Okay? So this is really, really frustrating. It's hitting a spot where it shouldn't be, but you know, it really is. So again, with that said, I really hope that you guys will allow me to just continue on with my project and do not delay things further, because all these people, they're just delaying things, unfortunately. And you know, this house has been a drug house. Homeless have been living there for many, many years, since the 70s. I have contractors, older contractors that I know, used to party at that house when they were going to Salinas High School. That's in the 70s. And these guys are saying, oh, there's no violence, there was no 911 calls. It was all because of me. That's ridiculous. That really is. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from members of the public? Anyone else like to speak? Do we have anything on Zoom? Anybody with a raised hand?
There's no raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask, before we do the additional questions or comments from the commissioners, Courtney, could you outline for us, when we're approving a conditional use permit, because there's a lot of information to digest, what are we needing to focus on? Because I think some of this we have no control over, has nothing to do with Planning Commission, although they're valid questions or, things that they want to present, but to help us focus on what the staff has done, provided, and then what we need to look at as far as if we approve this permit or not.
Sure. The focus of this project is residential design review of a single-family home. The applicant in this case has decided to add the ADU and the JEDU to the project. Those items are outside of reach of the city for a number of reasons. They are what is considered state preemption to the local zoning code. So we really need to look at those just from compliance of state law, which is ministerial building permit. So it's really not part of this application. It's shown on the plans more or less for reference. So anything about the ADU or the JEDU is just going to follow the standard state regulations. But what we really need to focus on is the residential block face, the design, the development standards, the appearance of the architecture. RDR was put together in the zoning code back in, I want to say, around the 2006 era, so we're about 20 years into this now. And it's designed to make sure that second-story additions and the rebuild or replacement of an existing single-family home or development on a vacant lot in the RL district, so not in the future growth area where you have specific plans or planned unit development permits. It's just for RL properties to make sure that the home proposed fits in. Those regulations and the analysis are discussed and contained in the staff report. So really, the Planning Commission's purview is on the design of the single-family home. The ADU stuff just falls into place through a building permit process. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so then, any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Rocamora.
Yeah, just listening to everybody. First of all, our comments here as planning commissioners, we have our own feelings on what we want to do, but we have to look at both sides. And I'm just letting you know, just looking at both sides and seeing what everybody has to say. And being a resident here all my life, growing up, and basically from the 60s, 70s, I've seen Salinas change. And I understand people living in certain communities, they want to keep it the same. But things change. I wish I could complain about every single thing that's happening down my street. There's houses down my street that have 10 cars. It's not what I bought my house. When I first bought my house, it was not like that. Now it is, and things are changing. The problem with Salinas is we're not building enough. I commend the owners. They're building. They're basically, because I used to ride my bikes out there, around there. I grew up in North Salinas, but we used to ride all over Salinas. I commend them for building that, buying that property and basically building it and looking at the pictures. I think it's going to fit in. Also, I don't think they're going to spend that much money and bring in and rent that place out to anybody. They have kids. I see their kids there. I'm currently building an ADU right now, but I'm currently building ADU for my mother-in-law. And they may be using that also for their mother-in-law or their parents. I believe in that. And I do side with the homeowners there. Yeah, you want to preserve it. But, to me, it's like we should all work together and, better Salinas. Because through the years, all I see Salinas is trying to get better. But growing up here, it was a nice place. And I think, to me, it's still a nice place, but we just need to make it better. And we as residents of Salinas, we just need to make it better. And for him to buy the property and seeing that property, there's a lot of properties here all over Salinas that needs to be redone. And it's going to be the private party that's going to be building Salinas. That's what builds Salinas, is the private money. It's not the city of Salinas. They don't have that much money. And I always say it all the time. But for me to make a decision, I have to look at both sides. I don't know which way we're going to go. But I do listen to both sides. And I'm just saying, for everybody, we just need to work together. And, that's all I have.
All right, any questions or comments, Commissioner Mora?
No questions. I think from my perspective, I share a lot of Commissioner Rockamore's point of view. I did look at the property on like Zillow before when it was purchased, right? And I also commend you. I do think that this will be an improvement to the neighborhood. I walk my dog around Salinas all the time, so I feel like I know the city pretty well, right? And I've walked past it many times. I know change brings about strong feelings, but ultimately it's about compliance, and the staff report was very clear that it is, in fact, in compliance. So I think I'm pretty clear on my decision moving forward.
Okay, Commissioner Purnell?
I was just wondering, Ms. Gallardo, or maybe even from the applicant, my understanding is that the original designs had to go through some modifications. Is there a length of time and or cost that they've had to encumber because of the revisions that they were required to make from the city?
Did you want me to
Or whoever.
respond to that?
I'm just curious as to how long they've been.
Yes, the design had to be changed because it didn't meet the development regulations based on the infilled zoning code. So I'm sure there were costs and, of course, time. This application is CUP 2024, so we're at 2026 at this point. So it's been approximately a year and a half. But based on, I don't know how much it cost the applicant, but yes, there is time that's delayed along with redesigning the architectural plans. So I'm sure there's a cost associated with that with the owner.
Then to clarify again with you, Courtney, this CUP specifically for the design conversation has essentially the ADUs and JADU sits in the building permit process and not the CUP.
Correct.
Correct. For instance, the ADU shown in the back, that could have just been blank.
Okay.
And then the owner would apply for a building permit for the ADU thereafter. The JADU could be shown as a bedroom, and then a building permit come in later to install the facilities for the unit, kitchen, plumbing, things like that.
So essentially, they've just been transparent with this design to disclose the ADU up front.
Correct. We
That's
encouraged applicants that, we get a hint sometimes what's happening, and we encourage the transparency or so we can help and assist and facilitate the process so that the project can work better in the long run. Sometimes things are missed, setbacks or parking issues, or a number of things can be more or less massaged or eased as a whole of a project rather than piecemealing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then I had just kind of a follow-up question about the parking. So I believe how I read it and understood it, the reason why you mentioned the bus stops was that was satisfying, like, for example, in the CUP, it's not even addressed, right?
Actually, it's within, as you can see on the presentation buffer, AB 2097. Let me go back to that. It's not working. Can you go back further down? Where there is a map with the buffer? Right there. Thank you. So, as stated previously, based on Assembly Bill 2097, if you're located within a half a mile of a major transit bus stop, we can't impose parking on this particular project. I was referencing the picture to right where that buffer is crossing the subject site. That indicates that it's within that half mile.
And just to emphasize on that, this is another one of the state's preemptions. We are in a housing crisis of 2019. This is all part and parcel of a number of state initiatives to increase housing production. This is one of those other preemptions from the state. And this applies to not only housing, but it applies to every development project in the city except for hotels and bed and breakfasts. So all those blue areas, None of those projects can the city require parking. In fact, the city is prohibited from requiring parking.
Yes. And with that, the applicant is applying for, as part of the project, 3-car garage. So although it's not required as part of these Assembly Bill 2097, he is providing it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think that was it. I guess just one other thing I wanted to kind of ask is, like the issues they're talking about, I live in an older neighborhood too, and about the sewer lines and things, but what they're referring to, that would be on the property sewer lines, or would that be, you know, for example, when they go to build as part of the building permit, how detailed does that process happen? Like, are they going to be taking soil samples? Are they going to be, you know, like what happens when we get further down the line? I think a lot of us do think, why don't we check those things ahead of time? But I know you need to get somewhere so you can open up all of that.
Yeah, perhaps Courtney could give his input, since he's been here a little bit longer and I'm not very familiar with the building process. But I know within the city, there is public utilities, but in terms of process, I'm not exactly sure how that comes
Yeah,
into
like would
play.
the contractor then be required to obtain all of that in their process? I guess is what I'm wanting to address and just clarify if we could have an understanding.
Right. Note that there's an Exhibit U, part of the plan set. This is the utility plan. This is another reason why it's sometimes good to show everything at one time so that trenching and utilities can be all put together at the same time. Sewer, water, all of those facilities are available to the site. It's up to the developer to install the facilities to the city connection point. The building permit process includes a number of steps and checks to make sure that that is done properly and inspected per codes. Certain fees are required, for instance. Many of the fees for ADUs have been waived by the city through something called a fee holiday or something like that to encourage ADU development.
Okay, and then I had another question about the ADUs from the state level. So my thought was when they were talking was, okay, so I understand the school zone issue. It's constant. Every part of the city that has that, you know, some people that are like, well, I leave in the morning, so I'm gone. I don't know who's parking in front of my house. They don't care. But when we have older neighborhoods, a lot of older folks are home a lot throughout the day, or now we have people that work from home, so we see it. But for example, because we're in the middle of zoning, changes in general plan and all that, so this is the time to speak up for the next 20, 30 years. But if we were involved and stay engaged, even if we were to ask for, well, make a circumference, like you have this bus route here, like make a circumference that around schools, you don't allow additional ADU units, as an example. Like, could that even be done by our city as a decision, or are we stuck with what the state has already declared for us?
And keep in mind, the city of Salinas is a pro-housing city. We encourage housing development. I believe something like that would be tough to get past the state.
Okay, 'cause I was thinking, you know, yeah, if we set some kind of guidelines, but then we would be, we wouldn't be able to follow through with it anyway.
Yeah,
Some of those challenges, I think we're just stuck with and having to figure out alternatives. Like, well, I think we tried to with the city of doing bike lanes in the downtown, but of course, for us to get to downtown to ride our bike, it's a real challenge. So we ended up with, oh, that was a great idea, but then how do we make it all work? You know, and I think we just got to continue to look at that as an overall, how do we get around?
Yeah.
You know, we have East Salinas is developing, but then how do we get across town now with an additional 50,000 people living here, you know?
And I
like all of that's got to be part of the conversation, but now, while we're updating all of these plans.
And I could answer in more detail based on your question with the state, if we could change it based on local ordinance. And this is taken out of the government code, 66325. It says the state's ordinance shall supersede a conflicting local ordinance and does not limit the authority of local agencies to adopt a less restrictive requirements for creation of an accessory. And I've had, you know, back and forth correspondence with the state's ADU divisional manager with regards to this particular subject. So state actually supersedes, and we can't make it, we have to follow the state, and we can't wiggle from that.
Okay, thank you. Well, that was my questions and comments. I'd just like to say thank you for everything everybody's done and contributed here, because it's part of a bigger conversation I think we'll be moving into more and more. But thank you for going above and beyond, helping the applicant try to make things, bringing the gap from right here, as close as we are now. So with that, do we have a motion?
Through the chair, if I may, I do have some, I know Mr. Panzer had some concerns based on the recent submittal, and I do have follow-up answers for that if you would like to hear it, or if you want to go on and vote. Okay, so one of the first comment was based on density for the ADU. And part of the report, the staff's report, is that lot density pursuant to Government Code 66314, an ADU application cannot be denied based on that lot density. Furthermore, Mr. Panzer had talked about the CEQA analysis. So staff had exempted under 15303 for new construction or conversion small structure. And 15303A states that the exemption is for one single-family residence or a second dwelling unit in a residential zone. In urbanized area, in which Salinas, City of Salinas is an urbanized area, up to 3 single-family residents may be constructed or converted under this exemption. So that's the exemption that we use as one of the CEQA exemption, and the other exemption that we use falls within the infill development projects, and which is a class 32 that, as long as it's compatible with the general plan, policies, zoning designation, the proposed occurs within city limits of no more than 5 acres. This site is no more than 5 acres as well. And the project has no value for habitats or endangered species, and we confirm that there's no endangered species that would require additional environmental analysis. And also that the approval of the project will result in not result in any significant effects relating to traffic, noise, air quality, and water quality, and that the site is adequately served by all required utilities and public services in which we had discussed. Therefore, the project meets the section that's described under the infill development exceptions.
Okay. So on the one that you said, up to 3 single-family residents, so it's not 3, but if we were to think it was 3, even, it would still fall under that exemption.
Correct. We're not counting the ADU here, it has the 3.
Okay, but if we were in our mindset, it would still fall under that. Okay. All right, anybody else have anything, or is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve a resolution finding the project exempt pursuant sections 1530 and 15332 of the CEQA guidelines, affirming the findings and approving conditional use permit 2024067.
No, second.
Okay, with the first from Commissioner Mora and a second from Commissioner Purnell, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Rocamora?
Yes.
Commissioner Mora?
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell?
Yes.
Chairperson McKelvey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So regarding conditional use permit 2024-067, request for residential design review to construct a 1,614 detached single-family, I think it should be 1,614 square foot detached single-family dwelling unit with a 748 square foot attached 3-car garage, an 818 square foot accessory dwelling unit, ADU, and an attached 470 square foot junior accessory dwelling unit, JADU, located at 110 Chestnut Street in the residential low-density airport overlay RL 5.5 AR zoning district. The Planning Commission has just approved. the request for a conditional use permit which cannot be issued for 10 days. During this 10-day period, any person having standing to do so under the law who is aggrieved by this action or decision may file an appeal with the County Development Department located at 65 West Alice House Street. Now we'll move on to considerations. No considerations. Commissioner reports, and just so you know, commissioners, this is kind of what the council does, but it's allowing us an opportunity to speak or ask questions from the commissioners regarding the city or within your districts. So any commissioner reports? Commissioner Rockamora?
Nothing right now.
Okay. Yeah, and just so you know, so now it's in your mind if you have something you want to bring and share. Commissioner Mora?
No, not on my end.
Commissioner Purnell?
I don't have something specifically planning commission related. I just wanted to actually acknowledge Brisa, because this morning the City of Salinas had their Community Alliance for Safety and Peace Award breakfast, and so she's been working since 6 a.m. this morning, so I appreciate her commitment to be here this afternoon and all the work she's been doing. So just a side note that I'm grateful she's still here and awake.
Yes, thank you.
I do have one. It's basically for next week. It's our Asian fair, cultural fair by Asian Cultural Experience. It's next week from 11 to 4. And it's the 3 communities of the Chinatown area with the Chinese, Japanese, and the Filipino community. And everybody's welcome. It's a free event, and we'd be happy to see everybody there and joining us. And I know the city is working with us also. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And yeah, as I kind of said in my comments, you know, there are a lot of city meetings that are going out to the public. If people cannot do it, you know, make the time or whatever in person, you know, a lot of them are then replayed on YouTube. Just so you can, you know, while you're doing something else, have it playing, you know, but a lot of these changes are addressed, but the complaints we have now is partly because it was written so long ago and we've already outgrown that. And so we've got to think in those terms of not just what do we need today, what do we need in 10, 20, 30 years. And so being a part of that conversation, it really is the community that needs to contribute and engage, because otherwise it's going to be what a consultant somewhere thinks would be great for us, and that's not what we want. So just so the public can keep that in mind, that you can sign up on the website to get on their email list. They're coming out very quickly. I love receiving them now. I think we were asking for that a year and a half ago, and now it's happening. So these meetings and then a lot of community meetings are happening out there. So those are my comments. All right, any follow-up reports?
None.
Future agenda items.
I do have one of those. On our next meeting, which I believe is May 6th, we are working on a project at 200 Casentini Street. This is a planned unit development permit. It will have a couple of components, including a conditional use permit and a site plan review. This will be for the development of 88 affordable multifamily residential units, a daycare center, and other changes to an older 1990s era PUD.
Very good. Okay, so for our next meeting, it's planned for May 6th. There's only 4 of us here now, but does anybody foresee that they won't be able to make it, or will everybody be able to come? You can raise your hand. Okay, assuming we're here. And if you can, when Brisa sends out the, what is it, when you send the agenda, how do you want them to respond? Like you're asking, will you make it? If you could respond, at least if you're assuming you'll be there.
Currently, I expect an email back saying that you'll be able to attend. Some commissioners do respond back to me, and it goes only to me. Other commissioners won't be able to see your response. But I'm also working on setting up a calendar invite that it's blind for all commissioners, so you'll only see yourself and me in that invite. And if you just click accept, I'll know that you're coming.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Today, we were a little concerned about quorum, so just if they know ahead of time, they can reschedule things if needed or if they can. And then I'd just like to say for Commissioner Meeks, we're praying for him. He is still going through his treatments, but he's getting through them, and he's hoping to be here on May 6th, so hopefully we see him then. Okay, with that, our meeting is adjourned.